To everyone, I wish you a very happy day. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to our beautiful Mitzi Kutera and my fellow classmate of ADT 1D. The Cavite Mutiny of 1872 is the subject of the motion for discussion or debating for this day. It is typically portrayed as an uprising of Filipino soldiers and arsenal workers motivated by the local grievances and started by the friars and effort to silence the prices and lawyers pushing for reform. I am Muhammad Isfarjay Tatik, class of Bsit ADT 1D. Now, let me introduce to you our debaters. Representing the affirmative side, member Muhammad Isfarjay Tatik, myself as a first speaker. The second speaker is Ruaina Antonio, and the third speaker is also myself, Muhammad Isfarjay Tatik.
Good morning, ma'am. We are the team opposing of Filipino perspective.
I am Rana Escatit. I am first speaker of Filipino perspective.
My name is Joseph Obayhon. I am the second speaker of Filipino perspective.
My name is Gonzalo Mandong, the third speaker of the Filipino perspective.
I'm Hannah Patricia G. Puasani, the continuation of third speaker of Filipino perspective.
So for the rules of debate, the affirmative side will be the start the discussion and followed by the opposition side. I'd like to introduce to you myself as a first speaker to represent your speech. Good day everyone. By the way, I am Muhammad Isfarjay Tatik, class of Bsit ADT 1D. Before I start my speech, I'd like to first define some of the terms I'll be using to make my points. For the benefits of everyone's knowledge, a conspiracy is defined by a Merriam-Webster as a covert agreement or a plan between two or more parties to engage in harmful or criminal activity. So a covert scheme was developed to overthrow the Spanish government by a revolution. The Cavite Mutiny took place in 1872. The affirmative side stand that Spanish version is more reliable or truth. This house believed that the Cavite Mutiny was an uprising by the Filipino against the Spanish government. The Filipinos so clearly revolted out of their own free will. Although it may seem like it was because of the abolition of the benefits, the affirmation labor difficulty was thought to be source of this, or the exemption and the forced labor issue. When Gobernador Izaguirre eliminated the privilege of exemption from annual tribute and from performing labor, the labor issue arose. But the affirmative side statement believed that it is not. With this, I would like to defend our stand that Cavite Mutiny is a grand conspiracy. A conspiracy is a plan and not a labor issue by representing my arguments. This is my point. According to the narrative of Jose Montero Vidal, the conspiracy had been continuing since the days of Gobernador Lotore without most secretly. Therefore, at the time of Gobernador Izaguirre's success before Gobernador Lotore, Izaguirre received other anonymous reports that put him on high alert even before the mutiny. According to him, the event was premeditated and primary instigator were the three friars known of Comboza, and it was not only just because of the lifting of the tax exemption to the laborers of the Cavite arsenal, but also a revolt to overthrow the Spaniard or the Spanish government. From assassination of the Gobernador General to general massacre of all Spaniards, including the friars. It is also argued that the labor issue was not only the reason of the revolution, but of the simple fact that there is a revolution with the purpose to overthrow the Spaniard. Then there is an existing conspiracy. Here are a few reasons: a press that was not under control, spread of propaganda against Spaniards, the Democratic and Republic books and pamphlets, the speeches and preaching of the apostles of new ideas and was toward their goal that they started to work with the powerful assistance of the certain section to achieve their independence. It was also suspected that the principal leaders met either in the house of the Bacoor, who was the heart of the revolution planning movement, would typically make changes to his gathering. This conspiracy encompassed numerous citizens in addition to the Manila garrison, assassinated along with the soldiers, officers, masters, and servants. So the governor would be removed from his duties or office. This demonstrated that the uprising was well thought out in advantage. Or Dr. Trinidad de Tevera said that Moretti and colonial minister had drafted a plan outlining a dramatic reform of the colonial system of governance that would be consistent with the values upheld by revolution in Cavite. Due to the facts and promises, the Filipino had great hope of your improvement in the affairs of the country. So, do you have any question?
So this is my question to you, Mr. Tati. How can you say that the Spanish version was really telling the truth?
So how can I say that the Spanish version was really telling the truth? To answer to your question, this is my answer. The argument for claims that the Spanish version is more truth. The Cavite Mutiny, according to this stand or affirmative stand, was a Filipino revolution against the Spanish government. It is so obvious that the Filipino people rebelled for their own free will, despite the impression that the removal of the benefits was the cause. It was assumed that this was caused by the aforementioned labor issue. The labor issue developed after Governor Isigurdo abolished the right of exemption from paying annual, asserted that the revolution begins factor was not the labor issue but rather the fact that the Spanish were to be overthrown. However, the affirmative assertion thinks it isn't. Additionally, it is Spaniards were to be overthrown. Then, there is an existing conspiracy.
These sides believe that the Filipino version is more reliable. I'm not saying this because I am a Filipino, but because we appreciated and considered the sacrifices of our fellow Filipino. During the Cavite Mutiny, we will give argument and information that will prove our side. The 12th of June of every year since 1898 is a very important event for all the Filipinos. In this particular day, the entire Filipino nation as well as Filipino communities all over the world gathers to celebrate the Philippines Independence Day. 1898 came to be a very significant year for all of us. It is equally important as 1896, the year when the Philippines Revolution broke out, owing to the Filipinos' desire to be free from the abuses of the Spanish colonial regime. Another year is as historic as the two major events in 1872. Dissatisfied with abolition of their privilege, and indirectly, Tavera blamed Governor General Rafael Esquerdo cold-blooded policies such as abolition of privilege of workers and native army members of arsenal, prohibition of founding of people of arts and trades for the Filipinos, which General believed as a cover-up the organization of political club.
This is my question to you, Madam Cathy. Do you believe that the only participated in revolution or rebellion were only the workers?
The Filipino initiated an uprising rebellion because they have the right to fight for their freedom, and maybe this way of fighting is not good. It's not good way. What is right and just, but the Filipino have no other choice but to fight for their freedom.
In addition to a few arguments of Mr. Tati, I also make some counter-arguments. Therefore, despite the involvement of native soldiers, Filipino Spaniards, and native clergy in the Cavite Mutiny, the argument has attempted to indicate that only workers are active in the few revolution. The revolution. Portions of the revolution occurred before the Gomburza's assassination, and there were rumors that this plan had been conceived in secrecy before the previous governor de la Torre administration. The plan had been ongoing with the utmost secrecy, and it was also stated that there were other motives for the uprising in addition to the labor issue. I'd want to share my arguments in order to substantiate my claims. My first point to you is that according to Dr. Trinidad Hermenegildo Pardo de Tavera, this incident was merely a mutiny by the native Filipino soldiers and workers of the Cavite as a signal against the harsh policy of the governor and Captain General Rafael Izquierdo, which eliminated their prior privilege of exemption from paying tribute and performing forced labor. With the exceptions of failing to mention De La Torre's mistrust of Filipino reformist Montero. Escamacher claimed that the Pardo de Tavera narrative exhibits evidence of being the most reliable. In addition to his anti-Filipino tone and suspicions of a revolutionary conspiracy, he also provided the most details in this account and all the appearance most reliable account of the actual course of the revolt itself as well as the executions of these priests. In here, the account of Tavera was obviously biased because he speaks subjectively. My second point is the mutiny in Cavite provided the conservative element with an opportunity to represent the Spanish government. This favorably continued the colonial modus vivendi. The goal of the massive conspiracy, which was organized throughout the archipelago, was to undermine Spanish authority. This claimed that the propagation of Spanish government in Madrid. My third and final point is that Jose Montero's testimonies are supported and enhanced by Izquierdo's official report on the Cavite mutiny. So my question is, if you were in this situation, do you think that you can immediately plan the revolution without preparing a specific plan of your ultimate goal is to execute the plan successfully, which take time in order to overthrow the government? For Izquierdo, the revolt was aimed at overthrowing the Spanish government with the end goal of installing a new Hali, placing a priest at the top of the government in the person of Jose Burgos, Jacinto Zamora, and this basically shows that the mere fact of executing the overthrow Spanish government justifies that the happening in the mutiny was a grand conspiracy and no labor issues.
This is the question to you, Madam Roain Antonio. Why did the Spanish kill the 3 martyrs?
This is my answer to your question, Mr. Bayhon. There were rumors that this strategy had been devised secretly prior to the administration of the previous governor, De La Torre. The plan was being carried out in complete secrecy, and it was also stated that the labor issue was not only reason for the uprising. It was against this charged environment that Gomburza were accused and found guilty of allegedly orchestrating the Cavite Mutiny of 1872, and charged of treasons and seditions by Spanish authorities. They were sentenced to public execution by garrote in the same year in public to serve as a treat to Filipinos never attempt to fight the Spaniard again.
On February 15, 1872, the Spanish colonial authorities sentenced 3 martyr Father Jose Burgos, Mariano Gomez, and Jacinto Zamora to death by garrote Bagumbayan, Philippines, and charged with treason and sedition and subversion. 2 days after their verdict, they were executed. The charges against Fathers Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora was their alleged complicity in the uprising of workers at the Cavite Naval Yard. It was believed by Governor Rafael Izquierdo that the Filipino will create their own government, and allegedly the 3 priests were nominated as the leader of planned government in order to break free of the Spanish government. Besides from Gomburza execution on January 28, 1872, the military court sentenced 41 mutineers to death. However, on the next day, Governor Rafael Izquierdo pardoned 28 mutineers and the rest were confirmed to sentence. On February 6, 1872, 11 mutineers were sentenced to death, but Governor Izquierdo commuted their death sentence to life imprisonment. Together with execution of Garote, the three martyrs was Enrico Paraiso, Maximo Inocencio, and Crisanto de los Reyes were imposed to 10 years imprisonment. On January 20, 1875, about 200 men comprised of soldiers, laborers of arsenal residents of Cavite, headed by Sergeant La Madrid, rose in arms, assassinated the commanding officer and Spanish officer in the site. The insurgents were expecting support from bulk of army. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The news about the mutiny reached in Manila. General Izquierdo immediately ordered the reinforcement of the Spanish troops in Cavite. After 2 days, the mutiny was officially declared subdued. The Spanish friars and General Izquierdo used the Cavite mutiny as a powerful level by magnifying. It is full-blown conspiracy involving not only native army but also included residents of Cavite and Manila, more importantly the native clergy, to overthrow the Spanish government in the Philippines.
I have a question to you, Mr. Bayhon. Do you believe they will be successful with the labor issues without the specific plan, since they were too strong for the Filipino at that time, the Spaniards?
Did you know that the rebellion starts when a Spanish government sentenced unreasonable punishment to the innocent priests, namely Father Jose Burgos, Father Mariano, and Father Gomez Jacinto Zamora, which is known as Gomburza? This act sentencing death to the innocent priest is actually a move of the Spanish government to increase their power in the society.
For the first point, it is believed that the Filipino wanted to overthrow the Spanish government. The Cavite Mutiny happened during the year 1872. This was believed to happen because of the said labor issue. The labor issue happened during the time of Gobernador Izquierdo, when he removed the privilege of exemption from annual tribute and from rendering labor. He instated the mutiny is simulated and prepared by the native clergy, mestizos, and lawyers as a signal of the objection against the injustice of government, such as not paying provinces for tobacco crops, paying tribute, and rendering of forced labor. It is not clearly identified if the Indios plan to inaugurated in monarchy or a republic because they don't have a word or in their own language to describe this different from of government, whose leader in Filipino would be called Hari. However, it turned out that they would set as the supreme of the government in price, that the leader select would be Jose Burgos or Jacinto Zamora, which the plan or the rebels who guide them, and the means they counted upon realization. Second, Filipino are guilty of rebellion and sedition. Thus, the execution are justified. During the short trial, the captured mutineers testified against Jose Burgos. The state witness Francisco Zaldúa declared that he had been told by one of the Basa brothers that the government of Father Burgos would bring a navy fleet of the United States to assist a revolution with which Ramon Morante, the supposed field marshal, was financing with 50,000 pesos. The heads of the friar ordered held on conference and decided to get rid of Burgos by implicating him to a plot. One Francisco friar disguised as a Burgos and suggested a mutiny to the mutineers. The senior friars used an una fuerte suma de dinero or a banquet to convince Governor General Rafael Izquierdo. So they too were included. The allegation also Francisco Zaldúa had been the principal informer against the three prizes. His statement had been the main basis for the convincing, and he had been promised pardon in exchange for the testimony. Lastly, there was a coincidence that there was a fest at Sampaloc and a fireworks show for a festival, which they mistook as a form of revolution in January 20, 1872. At night, the Filipino was the time and the date to start their plan to commence with the attack. Their leader was Fernando La Madrid and Mestizo Sergeant with his second in command, Jairel Brent Sr. Moreno. These eyes for San Felipe and killed 11 Spanish officers. The plan was to set fires in Tondo in order to distract the authorities, while the artillery regiment and infantry in Manila could take control. The signal being the firing of the rockets from the city walls on the night. Unfortunately, what they thought to be the signal was actually a burst of the fireworks in a celebration of the feast of Lady of Loretta, the patron of Sampaloc. The revolution was easily crushed. Mutineers thought the fellow Filipino indigenous soldiers in Manila would join them in conquered uprising. All Spaniards were to be killed, except for the women. On February 15, 1872, the Spanish colonial authority sentenced three martyrs, Padre Jose Burgos, Mariano Gomez, and Jacinto Zamora, to death by garrote at Bagumbayan, Philippine, and charged with treason and sedition and subversion. 2 days after their verdict, they were executed on February 17, 1872. The charges against Father Gomez, Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora aligned complicity in the uprising of workers and the Cavite Naval Yard. The Gombosa were executed by the garrote in public to serve as a treat to Filipino never to attempt to fight the Spanish again. It was believed by Governor Rafael Isigurdo that the Filipino will create its own government, and allegedly, the three priests were nominated as the leader of the planned government in order to break free of the Spanish government. Beside from the Gombosa executed on January 28, 1872, the military court sentenced 41 mutineers to death. However, on the next day, Governor Rafael Isigurdo pardoned 28 mutineers and the rest were confirmed to sentence. On February 6, 1872, 11 mutineers were sentenced to death, and Governor Isigurdo commuted their death sentence to the life imprisonment. Together with the execution of the garrote to the three martyrs was Enrique Paraiso, Maximo Inocencio, and Crisanto de los Reyes, were imposed to 10-year imprisonment. That's all. Thank you so much, everyone. Who was the Governor General who ordered the execution of the Gombosa? Rafael Isigurdo y Gutierrez. He was the Governor General during the 1872 Cavite Mutiny, which led to execution of 41 of the mutineers, including the Gombosa martyrs. On February 17, 1872, the three martyrs prizes Fathers Mariano, Father Gomez, and Father Jose Apolinario Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, better known for the acronym Gombosa.
Propagandas propagated by the unrestrained press, Democratic, Liberal, and Republican, book and pamphlets reaching the Philippines, in most importantly, the peasants of the native clergy who out of animosity against the Spanish friar conspired and supported the rebels and enemy of Spain. In addition, account of the mutiny suggests the Spanish Revolution in Spanish during the time, and added more determination to the natives to overthrow the current colonial Spanish government. Different account in the Cavite Mutiny also highlighted other probable cause of the revolution, which include Spanish Revolution, which overthrew the circular throne, dirty propagandas propagated by the
This is my question to you, Madam Puasan. Why do we need to be killed the Spanish officers? Thinks this is not a revolution?
Answer Mr. Muhammad Edson Tati. Since we were colonized the Spaniards for third centuries, we all know that people in the timeline suffered a lot as they contributes a lot in this country. The Spaniards influenced Filipino in some ways, but it can ever change the fact that we became their slaves, our forefathers. I believe that Filipinos does not deserve the treatment that the Spaniards had done as the opposing team. I stand and believe to the version of my own race.